You're what you're saying, bro. So, I'm making this video because essentially I recently just left Adonis school, which is Hamza's private community. If you don't know who Hamza is, then I have no idea why you're watching this video. You're probably watching it because you know who he is, right? And you know that he has a community. He's this big self-improvement YouTuber, and about a year ago, April last year, he launched this new community called Adonis School. Essentially, it's this thing where you join for a certain fee, you pay a certain amount of money, and then what you get in return is you get live calls, Q&As, even recently guest calls, and you get access to a bunch of courses, and you get to talk to a lot of like-minded young guys, just like you, who are big fans of Hamza, and in a year, you're on self-improvement, right? And I joined because that's exactly who I was. I guess, his dream avatar, if you want to call it that. And yeah, I was just excited to join. And, I wanted to level up my self-improvement, my YouTube, and all this jazz. But I recently decided to leave after 10 months of being inside because I had a lot of realizations. And it's funny because I've actually gone and watched a few videos of guys talking about the same thing I'm talking about. And it's essentially just the same reason every time, which is very interesting. It's the same people coming to the same realizations. For me, it took a little bit longer. For some guys, it literally took a month. For me, it took 10 months to really discover the detriment that it was having on my life, honestly. Because it got to a point where the school, I realized it was negatively impacting me more than it was benefiting me. And I guess I've discovered a different perspective that a lot of guys probably might not see who are in the school or who are considering to join. Now, I'm not here to fucking shit on the school. I'm not here to shit on Hamza. I'm just here to give you my point of view on what I've seen from someone who was inside the community and what I've noticed in how it's affected my life, both positively and I can't fucking speak, both positively and negatively. And it's been more negative in recent times, I'll be completely honest, just because I've had a lot of realizations, and probably wondering, how did I come about to realize that Adonis School was not for me? Essentially, I had this conversation with another young guy in there, and we were just talking, and I think we just had a conversation, and we came across this topic of maybe talking about like over influence and low critical thinking, because this is something we both noticed. Like, a lot of the guys in there were just kind of just blindly following and not really following their like own direction and just listening to Hamza like 24/7. So we were talking about that, and we just delved a bit deeper into the genuine impact that Hamza has on these guys who are in his community. And it goes deep. It goes very fucking deep. And I won't get into absolutely everything today, because if I went into absolutely everything, it would take fucking like 2 hours. But I want to talk about just why I decided to leave, and why the school is just not a good place to be, honestly, in my opinion. Again, this is just my opinion from someone who's been in the school and who's left. Of course, if you're in the school, you see this, you can disagree with me, whatever, go to the comments, all that jazz. But I've got a little list of stuff I want to talk about. So Hamza is a very intelligent guy. He's very smart. He knows exactly what he's doing. And this is one of the first things I realized, is that he knows how to keep you trapped, essentially. Maybe trapped isn't the right word, but it's the word I'm going to use. He knows how to keep you trapped, and he knows how to make you listen to him on basically everything, even if it's something that he doesn't really know anything about. He just watched like one podcast of a guy saying something like, I don't know, carnivore diet's the best, and he just starts preaching it. That's one issue, is that Hamza himself tends to fluctuate his beliefs and what he thinks quite often. And he says this is learning, and to an extent I actually agree that him changing what he believes and stuff is learning. Of course, if you contradict something you said 6 months ago, in 6 months you can change a lot as a person. It's absolutely fine. But it got to an extent where it's happening so often, and it's going against so much of what he says in very recent times, like literally just weeks before he said it, that it was. And because Hamza has such a grand influence on this community, thing is, if he was changing his beliefs and everything, like, just to himself, and he wasn't influencing so many young guys, that would be okay. But because he's got such an influence over these young guys, it means that they follow what he believes constantly. And so the community's beliefs, and the majority of the people in there, what they do with their life and what they believe sways and just goes in the same direction as Hamza's. And so there's very few guys who are actually doing super well in business in there. And also there's very few guys who actually stick to one thing for a long period of time without changing what they do because Hamza said so. So that's one thing. You know what I will say, in the community, I actually gained a lot. You know, I actually made some good friends, I met some great people, and I saw what was possible. These are the main things that were beneficial for the community. I saw what was possible. I saw guys who genuinely went from my position or worse off to making 10k a month with, you know, in that. I saw that progress, and that was very inspirational, and it showed me what was possible. That's one of the biggest positives I took away from the community. But for most guys in there, they just have very low critical thinking. Very low critical thinking. In fact, it gets to a point where Hamza will say something and these guys will just take it as the ultimate truth because they treat Hamza like he's a god. They treat him like he's a messiah. And I mean, a lot of these guys are very young and they're very impressionable. And I'm not really here to judge the guys because, listen, they're improving their lives. I have nothing against that. I have the utmost respect for you if you want to improve your life. But it got to a point where it was less about improving yourself and self-improvement, you know, the self in self-improvement. It was more about Hamza improvement, Adonis improvement. So instead of becoming the best version of yourself and doing what you truly want to do, it was about doing what Hamza told you to do and then becoming essentially just a clone of him. Even though you can't even, these guys, what they don't realize is that if you're trying to leave Hamza's shadow and you're trying to exit, you know, trying to maybe take him over in the self-improvement genre of YouTube or whatever, if all you're doing is taking advice from Hamza on how to exit the shadow of Hamza, then you're never going to exit the shadow of Hamza. That's just not how it works. If all you're doing is taking advice, and these guys, they wonder why everyone calls them a Hamza clone. They wonder why, you know, they get really, like, no views on YouTube, or they wonder why no one listens to them. And it's, for the most part, it's because they have low credibility. They're young, they haven't really done anything. And they're told, you know, to go on wonk mode and shit. In recent times in the community, in fairness, there was more of talk about going out and actually living life a bit more, so then you have things to talk about and you actually have credibility rather than just saying stuff that's repeated. This is another thing. It's a lot of young guys who are giving advice based on basically what Hamza said and not actually something they've been through themselves. And it's just a repeating cycle of just guys who haven't actually done anything or haven't done the thing they're giving advice on. They give the piece of advice. That guy then gives that piece of advice to someone else. It's just a repeating cycle where it's just guys just giving constant advice that they actually haven't been through. And they think they know a lot because they're, you know, that on self-improvement. Another thing is just this obsession with self-improvement as a whole. It's, there's some young guys in there who essentially are so caught up in this whole self-improvement mindset, because I hate that fucking word now. I just don't like that word. They get so caught up in being on self-improvement and thinking they're like the shit because I meditate for 10 minutes, I go gym, that they just stop thinking logically and they stop thinking with common sense. The thing is, like, it's like they want to be so different that they stop thinking with common sense and they start, because they want to be uncommon, they start thinking uncommon sense, if you know what I mean. Kind of a weird thing to say, but yeah, it's just, the biggest thing is that these guys follow Hamza like he is genuinely like a god and like he knows everything, like he knows all the answers. And a big thing that really I really did not like in the community, something that Hamza preached to the guys in there, was that you know, basically, essentially, you're not successful like me. You can't trust yourself. This is what Hamza said. I'm not saying I'm successful. Essentially, he's saying to these young guys, you aren't successful like me. You can't trust yourself because you fap, you know, because you fapped 3 times one day. So listen to me because I know what's best for you. But he doesn't know what's best for you. That's the truth. Like, Hamza does not know who you are. He does not know what's best for you. And it's allowing these young guys to essentially stop trusting their own intuition, stop trusting themselves, and maybe stop doing what they truly want to do and stop doing certain things because it doesn't fit this image of Hamza's version of self-improvement. And so all they do is listen to what Hamza says, and all they do is take his advice. And because they're constantly listening to him, and Hamza's constantly changing his mind and what he's doing, those young guys are then influenced to change their mind constantly, and then you know, just not stick to one thing. And also stop doing things, or maybe they stop doing things that they genuinely want to do because it doesn't fit this image of self-improvement. But also, they begin to desire things and start to do things based on just something that Hamza said, when in reality, it's just creating more desires and more problems for them. So they could have like a thing in their life which is absolutely fine, or it's just creating more desires. And there's just so many fucking desires, and these guys, it's no wonder they can't stick to one thing at a time for like long enough, because all they're doing is getting more and more desires, and all they're doing is following Hamza and what he says. And so they just don't think for themselves, and all they do is live based on what Hamza tells them. And the argument that Hamza makes is, you know, you can't trust yourself because I'm 10 years older than you and I know better. But he's teaching these guys to not trust themselves and not trust their own intuition and not go through life and actually experience things and actually learn lessons the real way, which is like going out and actually living life and actually experiencing life and actually doing things, and not just reading a book and watching Hamza videos 24/7 and being on the community of, you know, just guys who are giving advice based on no experience, no credibility. That's really what it is. It's just a lot of young guys who are super like obsessed with this thing of self-improvement, and instead of looking at self-improvement as a thing that you should just, as it's just a way you should live, it's just simple as like, I don't see myself as on self-improvement anymore, because, and that doesn't mean I'm not trying to improve myself, it just means that I don't see myself as this Hamzified person. This is the term I use with me and my friend who talk about this. It's Hamzification. Every guy is just Hamzified. Not every single guy, of course, but to generalize, pretty much every guy in there is Hamzified, and they don't really think for themselves, and they're living a life because Hamza told them to, and they don't imagine a scenario where maybe, what if Hamza just didn't exist anymore? What if Hamza was gone? What if his community just shut down, he stopped making content, he just went off the grid completely? Would these guys be able to survive without that community? It feels like a lot of them can't. They're so over-reliant on Hamza's information and the guys in the community to give them advice, and they outsource their own intuition, their own critical thinking, their own ideas, which if they just sat down for 5 minutes and just figured it out for themselves, they could break it down and come up with a solution which is effective and is the most authentic solution for them personally, because every guy's different, but it's like every guy in here is the same because they are the same, because all they do is follow Hamza and repeat the same ideas. And I just didn't want to be part of that anymore. I've got a little list of things to talk about. Is there anything else? Yeah, so the main thing is just, it was teaching these guys to become an Adonis. The purpose is in the name, Adonis School. It teaches you to not become the best version of yourself, but to become the best version of Adonis, and basically obsess over this whole self-improvement thing. And whenever I hear the term on self-improvement, what that tells me is that you are not on self-improvement, you're on Hamza improvement. This is what all these guys are on. They're on Hamza improvement, not self-improvement. And I think a lot of them are missing out on living a life which is the most authentic to them and really figuring out things for themselves. But all they do is just consume. It's masters learning, it's masters, you know, oh, but it's self-improvement, so it's okay. But if all you're doing is taking the influences, especially from one guy who, by the way, is just one man who's, what, 26? He doesn't know absolutely everything. Yeah, he's a smart guy. Yes, I have a lot of respect for him. He's improved my life, but I've gotten to a point now where I want to move forward and experience life from my perspective, and not from just doing things because I'm told to by someone who tells me that I can't trust myself, because he knows that by saying that, it makes him money. At least that's how I see it. And I just didn't want to be part of it anymore. And going forward in life, I'm not going to see myself as this guy who's on self-improvement. I'm just going to live the best and most authentic. I'm just going to live the most authentic life possible, to where I'm also making sure that I'm happy and I'm constantly, you know, learning new things, going through life, having new experiences, and just living how we're supposed to live, and not taking in constant influences and developing new desires all the time because I'm told by Hamza, who changes his mind every 2 weeks, to have this new desire, even though 2 weeks ago he just said something else. You know, again, I understand the whole thing of learning and changing your mind because you're learning new things, but it gets to a point where it goes a bit too far, and because you're influencing so many young guys, they change their mind as well. And this is what I saw in myself, and I'm at a point now where I recognize that, and I've taken a step back and just seen this for what it is. I've been a bit more mindful, and I've had these realizations, and I'm just glad that I'm not part of that anymore. And again, got nothing against the guys in there, but this is what I've noticed, and this is just some criticism I have, some honest criticism, and maybe some guys will see this who are in there, and maybe they'll be like, you know what, he has a point. Maybe some guys will completely disagree and call me a Jeffrey. But even the term fucking Jeffrey is just so, like, overused. It's Jeffrey essentially means, at least what I believe, is that the term Jeffrey that Hamza came up with is basically, it's a term for someone who isn't doing this Hamza-fied version of self-improvement. That's basically what you are. If you don't agree with the cult, because it is a cult, that's what he's created. And some guys own the fact that they're a cult member, which is just kind of sad in my opinion, but it's a cult. And I don't want to be part of the cult. And, you know, maybe if you're in there, maybe you consider joining. Maybe you don't want to be part of it either. And maybe this video resonates with you. And that's cool. But again, this is just my thoughts, my opinions, and what I saw from being in there and why I decided to leave. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad that I left. I definitely made the right decision. And yeah, I guess I'll just leave the video there. And I hope you got some value from this video, or maybe, you know, you were just someone who knew it was probably like not a good idea to join from the start. Maybe someone in there who's in there and you agree. Maybe someone in the community is going to post this video in the community and then insult me or something. I don't know, but this is what I believe, and I'm going to stick to my beliefs. And, you know, if Hamza, you know, saw this and was like, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, like, okay, but I'm okay with that, because I don't base all my decisions and everything I do in life based on what Hamza would think of me. I'd rather not live a life where all I'm thinking about is, oh, what would Hamza do? Oh, Hamza might judge me. This is the life a lot of guys are living. So it just is what it is. So yeah, boys, I hope you enjoyed this video, though. It was quite a long one, but I just wanted to get it like this off my chest. A little bit ranty, but again, I have to get the point across, don't I? So yeah, boys. Until the next one, though, stay focused.